Welcome to Pablo Torre Finds Out. I am Pablo Torre, and today we're going to find out what this sound is.
If anyone has dreamed of doing this, if anyone wants to take our point-by-point guide and put this into action, now is the time.
Right after this ad.
You're listening to DraftKings Network.
The holidays are here at the Home Depot, so let's get to decorating. Find your perfect tree in our huge assortment of shapes, sizes, and styles. Like the easy-to-assemble Jackson Noble fir, with pre-lit branches perfect for styling with all your favorite ornaments. Or the Flock Starry Light Fraser fir, with over 1,900 pre-lit memory wire branches that keep their shape so it's ready right out of the box. Ooh. Find the perfect tree now at the Home Depot.
Right in front of the glass where our producers are. There's books. There's a racially ambiguous Christmas elf, if you recall last year's Christmas episode. There's a PS5 controller, a microphone.
It's really a junk drawer of a shelf.
My wife has accused me of, and she called me this yesterday. Okay, this is some late-breaking insult.
Yeah.
I am the master of tchotchkes.
I think that's great.
I agree. I think stuff, objects, physical objects in digital time.
Yeah.
Mickey, you're an artist. You get it.
Big time.
This is important. It's important to commemorate our history in front of us in real life, tangibly.
You know, it's very in vogue to have a minimalist aesthetic.
Right, Marie Kondo.
Yeah, I'm totally against that.
Yeah,
I am
Marie Kondo.
cluttercore to the core. I like to collect objects.
Yes.
And having them around me or on me or in my pocket, it just, I don't know, it makes my life feel richer.
Yes, and I would say that the episode we're here to do together is effectively about this concept as embraced by college football.
Definitely.
It is about the tangible objects that people are striving, whenever possible, to risk so much, it turns out, to acquire and keep for themselves.
So for the uninitiated, tearing down goalposts is really the supreme celebration for a college football underdog when they pull off an upset victory at home.
Oh, they're inching closer.
The hometown fans storm the field.
Their own field.
Their own field.
Here we go. The place is about to explode. It's all Iowa.
They jump over the barricades. They get out onto the field, and they celebrate with the players and the coaches, and they just go nuts.
There's going to be some fun on this campus here tonight.
In moments of great historic victory, they take the extra step and tear down their hometown goalposts.
And what a scene at Bobby Dodd. There go the goalposts.
And this is essentially the most valuable pelt that you can take down as a big game hunter.
Absolutely.
Actually.
It is a tradition that is hard to compare with anything else in the world of sports.
The goalpost is going. Do they have enough? Come on, get it down. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, so good. Carry him out, take him downtown.
It is self-destruction. It is your own stadium that you are ruining. It is illegal, highly illegal, objectively dangerous. And you've commemorated this on the sweatshirt you've brought us today in studio.
It says you're going down. You're, Y-R, going down. And with a little felt goalpost underneath it.
There's a certain partisanship in your reporting, I dare say.
Pablo, I feel like you focusing on the vandalism and the destruction.
I just have to say that legally.
Yeah, I mean, you're coming off as a real square because this is not only a great celebration that has gone back generations, this is really a folk tradition that I've come to learn and appreciate recently.
I should also say that, again, for just purely self-protective reasons, it is theft, technically.
So college administrators and law enforcement, they would agree with you. They tend to frown upon, the vandalism of stadiums and so forth. This goes far beyond just a conventional celebration. Not only are these things kind of paraded around, but they are also oftentimes chopped up into little pieces and distributed among the hometown fans who are celebrating this upset.
Yes, which is to say that this is an unusually and very special ecstatic revolution that involves all of this property destruction and theft that you describe. And the crazy thing about this season, of course, is that I believe that this tradition has been clearly the theme of what we've been watching.
Clark Lee and his Commodores looking to make some history. They haven't knocked off Bama since 1984.
Let's really start this story talking about when the great and number one seeded Alabama visited Vanderbilt University.
Yes, the Commodores.
To get inside this great upset that happened, we reached out to a young man named Luke Rickers, who's a student at Vanderbilt.
I'm a huge sports fan, go to all the games, go to all the basketball games, all the football.
And he's such a diehard that he stays to the end of every game. He
Right.
says, because Vanderbilt, historically not a great football power,
That is also kind to Vanderbilt. They're horrible.
most of the time when they're losing, most of the fans clear out of the student section, which for Luke and his close buddies is a great opportunity for him to weasel down to the front row right next to the field so he can take in what is usually some pretty mediocre football action.
If there was ever a Vandy win and you weren't there, you messed up big time, because that's not a thing that happened that often. So any win that we could get, you had to be there.
Which is all to say that Luke's expectations heading into this specific game, October 5th, against Alabama, big bad Alabama, it sounds like they were fairly low.
Well, historically, Vanderbilt has been killed by Alabama by probably an average of 50 points.
I had zero expectation going into that game. And I was just thinking, as long as we didn't get blown out like that last time we did, 52-0, that would have been a win in my book.
But unbelievably to Luke and to everybody at the stadium, the game went very, very differently than the usual contest between Vanderbilt and Alabama.
Bobby wants to throw. He goes down the middle. It is caught. Touchdown. Vanderbilt and Junior Sherrill.
Vanderbilt's been playing football since 1890. They'd never had a top 5 win. Top 5.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Little replay. Pavia throws. Touchdown. Vanderbilt.
So this is an unthinkable story that's unfolding.
And the biggest win on the West End. Vanderbilt takes down number 1 Alabama.
Vanderbilt 40, Alabama 35.
So Luke is sitting there, and he's sitting front row at this point. The unthinkable miracle has happened, and he said to himself, I want to be one of the first students on the field. He's standing at the top of this 10-foot wall. He's just adamant that he's going to get on that field.
And the rest of the students will do the same.
Everyone's storming the field. It's mayhem. What was Luke's plan?
Luke told me that there was no plan.
Oh, there was no plan. There was this opposing team cooler right under the wall. I was because I think it was a pretty decent drop. It was 8 feet, 10 feet. I ripped off my shirt at some point. I don't know if that was before or after I went over the wall. Fans kept accumulating. That mass in the middle just kept getting bigger and bigger. And I look over and the goalpost is just shaking. I was if that thing's coming down, I have to play a role in it. I have to get my hands on that thing. I managed to get my way to the base of the goalpost. And there's so many students trying to grab onto that thing and bring it down. It was so hard to just even get a hand on it. And eventually I do. Some kid I don't even know. He grabs my legs and lifts me up onto it. I don't know who pulled me or what happened, but I just ate it. Like I fell off the post, like into this kid. It was just a shit show, for lack of a better word.
I just want to point out that Vanderbilt is an excellent university. It's like a really academically rigorous school.
I will guarantee you that this was not on the Vanderbilt syllabus, no matter what the course coming into the semester, how to tear down a goalpost. But they chopped and they finally brought the thing down.
The video that we just played.
Yeah.
I mean, if you zoom in, you can pretty clearly spot
That's topless Luke right there, right there.
hands both stretched into the sky.
In a V,
Right
appropriately.
beneath a clearly tipping over yellow metal upright.
I mean, that's forever. That's so good.
So I was watching from home. And what you see, both online and in the broadcast, you see what reminded me of an army of just completely drunk ants, right? Just like carrying this object that's so disproportionately large, larger than them.
Once they got the goalpost down, they started to parade it around, and then everyone is thinking, okay, let's try and get this out of the stadium. On the side of the field that it was taken down, there was a tunnel, and they tried to march the goalpost out of that tunnel. It ends up being too big, but they slam it into the top of the tunnel. It takes a chunk out of the tunnel. They say, we got to back up. This is not going to work.
Where are the security guards at this point?
At this point, the security has pretty much given up hope of stopping the mayhem. So the students, they're like, okay, we got to backtrack. They're like, okay, we're going to try and get it out the totally other side of the field. They're able this time to get it out of the stadium, and suddenly they're out with this giant goalpost just out on campus.
Where are they trying to go?
So Luke says that even though there was no coordinated plan, the hive mind seemed to want to take this giant goalpost, almost as if the goalpost itself was a giant divining rod, and take it towards water. A 3-mile walk from campus down Broadway and to what is the Cumberland River in downtown Nashville.
I knew that when we got on the street that thing was ending up in the river. It's just kind of this unspoken mass movement in that general direction. And I was like, okay, that's what we're doing. I'm going to keep carrying it, see where we end up. But we end up at the river, and it just was the perfect landing place for it. Like, I don't know where else we could have put it down there, like in the middle of Broadway. Like, is that considered littering?
I'm going to show a video here on YouTube and the DraftKings Network, which I am deeply proud to show everybody. This is from the police helicopter, and it's in night vision.
So good.
I mean, this is an ant farm. Like, this is, look at, Mickey.
How unreal is that?
Just so many, just, again, night vision white, thermal signatures. Just a crowd of them, all
there it goes.
just plunging what is now clearly like the dislocated elbow of an upright into the river.
Luke talks about it almost like he had an out-of-body experience. Everyone's chanting, in the river, in the river. In the river. There's a real, almost a hysteria that has taken over everyone. So as he's watching this thing quickly sink into the Cumberland River, he tangibly feels the adrenaline leave his body, and he kind of comes back to his senses. And as he does, he kind of takes a look around him, and he realizes that his comrades, they're starting to get arrested by police.
And I was like, all right, that might be wraps. Might be time to find another activity or somewhere else to take the rest of our night.
But that sort of phenomenon you just described of a transformation.
Yeah.
I mean, part of the physical object that we're talking about here, it goes from this thing that is so mundane, it becomes this talisman, this piece of genuinely valuable memorabilia freighted with all of the energy of a night like this that people, as you referenced, proceed to then eventually get a piece of sometimes.
There seems to be some sort of unspoken magical energy that comes from carrying a physical piece, I mean, we're talking about an artifact that diehard fans would regard as something that could live in a museum.
Right,
you know?
right.
Not only has this phenomenon existed, this practice existed for more than a century, but that there is also this shadow war that's been going on between the kind of rebellious practitioners of this art form.
The Lukes of the world.
Yeah. And these larger forces that are really trying to squash this practice from happening. And I was really put on to the dynamics of this through one of the master practitioners of this rebel art.
And so this man, who does sound like he has a plan, what is this man's name?
This man's name, Pablo, is Sawman.
Peloton has what you need to keep you on track to your goals, no matter what season of life you're in. Friends, we're all different. We have different schedules. We have different needs. Some of us are injured, recovering from stuff. Some of us are young parents, youngish parents. We just don't have the time. We're at different fitness levels. That's why Peloton's perfect for you. You can challenge yourself anywhere with Peloton's all-access membership. You can work out where you need to, like at home, on your bike, tread, or row. Or you can take your favorite classes to go and take them at the gym with the app. No need for a personal trainer. You got Peloton, and Peloton is perfect for mindful moments during the sports season. Your favorite team just lost. You don't know what to do. Hey, guess what? Take a breather. Lay down and take a mindful meditation class on Peloton. Unwind. Forget about it. You know what else you can do with Peloton? Oh, I can't believe we just blew that game. How am I going to sleep? Boom. Peloton has classes for sleeping. Just put it on and fall asleep. Find your push. Find your power with Peloton at onepeloton.com.
So just one basic fact that I would like you to understand here before we proceed is that nobody tears down goalposts after NFL games, which I think says so much about the institution that is college football. A sport where this past Saturday, for instance, Lehigh University doinked their goalpost off a bridge and into their river after beating Lafayette to win the Patriot League. And in college, in fact, teardowns like this will happen multiple times on the same Saturday, including on that October day, October 5th, when Vandy upset Alabama and Arkansas also upset Tennessee, and none of our correspondents could have been more eager to dive into all of this than Mickey Duzyj, an animator and documentarian and illustrator who was last seen on this program, sharing the story of his secret life as an underdog goth tennis champion. Because despite what one power conference executive suggested to us here at Pablo Torre Finds Out, which is that the sport is deeply concerned about, quote, the safety of participants and spectators alike, end quote, this tradition, this subculture, is also an art form. A currently endangered, unhinged art form about literal unhinging that some are now daring to preserve.
So, as we said, Luke himself did not have a plan once he launched himself off this 10-foot wall onto the turf at Vanderbilt.
And I don't want to be this guy, but I have to be this guy because you're not going to be this guy, obviously. We are not telling college students who might be listening to this to tear down the goalposts at your local university football field. But if they were to efficiently tear down a goalpost...
So I can help you. As a public service, I have created the official Pablo Torre Finds Out guide to tearing down goalposts.
Great.
So let's start with the ingredients. First, you'll start with the goalpost, obviously. Okay. The next thing that you'll need is a crew of individuals. Third thing that we'll need is a field storming where your group can have access to this goalpost. And the last thing that you'll need is a little bit of time. Let's just say, on average, you'll need about 15 minutes to pull this off. After you have all of those ingredients, let's talk about the anatomy of your adversary here. Goalposts generally weigh between 600 and 1,000 pounds each. This is not a small object.
So heavy.
Each of these goalposts has three main parts to them. The uprights, each of them is 30 feet tall. Those are connected to a horizontal piece in the middle of the structure called the crossbar. And that crossbar is connected to the ground by the gooseneck, which is a curved piece of metal that connects usually to some sort of base at the bottom of the structure. So generally speaking, the uprights are the lightest part, which are made of a hollow aluminum piping, weighs about 50 to 75 pounds each.
I'm just going to stop you and point out that it sounds like you're an instructor in a terrorist training cell.
I resent that. This is, again, a public service, Pablo. The crossbar is a bit heavier. It weighs about 150 pounds. But it's really when we get down to the gooseneck, that's really where all the weight is.
What do young people typically screw up when they are trying to tear down a goalpost, given everything you've just laid out?
So there are a lot of ways to do this wrong. Let's just cover a few basic rookie mistakes. The first mistake is thinking that the key to taking down a goalpost is the gooseneck. The durability of said gooseneck is more than what your crew can handle. Sometimes people also think that the way to do this is to unscrew it. That is also not a thing. So don't think that that is worth your time either.
I want to point out that this entire time you have been pointing and gesturing and clenching your fists very violently over a bunch of illustrations you've made us very helpfully for this thing we are not telling college students to do, once again.
Well, it is really important to know what you're doing because the clock is ticking. The move is to hoist your group up onto the crossbar.
Where you want to lift the whole group onto the crossbar.
Maybe the most agile and strong members of your
We're going to hold a draft
group.
combine for this.
You want to group your members into one of the far corners where the crossbar meets the upright. So you're not trying to evenly disperse your weight across the entire length of the crossbar.
This is just physics now.
You're trying to choose one of the corners and put maximal weight on that corner. So you want people hanging on it. You want people jumping up and down on that corner. You are trying to give that corner, Pablo, the absolute business. That is going to win you just a few inches of downward tilt. At that point, move your attack to the entirely opposite corner. This is a gradual process. and after you do that, you're going to want to rock back and forth.
You're seesawing this thing.
Absolutely, that's the word, seesawing. So you're going from one side to another. It's really helpful for you to deputize a field general who's on the field, who actually calls out the changes, who says, you've done enough on that corner,
right.
Shift your attack. And once you get one of the corners very close to, if not down on the turf itself, that's when you shift to the next phase of this process.
Which is?
Getting your entire crew behind the goalpost, facing midfield. And what you want to do then is get as many hands on the goalpost. And if you have sufficiently weakened the goalpost's structural integrity and you give it an epic heave, that thing will come down and glory will be yours.
But as I'm now just processing all of this methodology, which I appreciate the detail on,
Thank you.
I realize that the part where we get to keep the glory for ourselves has not yet been discussed. And I presume for this part, we're going to need a tool that you haven't illustrated or taught me about yet.
That's right. And not just any tool.
In my professional opinion, you can either go old school, with old school hacksaw. Now, what I would recommend is that you actually have a sharp hacksaw. This one is like a butter knife, and it takes a little long to cut. But if you really want to get through the upright, you really need a reciprocating saw.
So, Pablo, this is the infamous and beloved folk hero known as Sawman.
I had a guess. Yeah.
So, by day, Sawman is known as Ned Vickers, who is the president of the Sugarlands Distilling Company in Tennessee. But this man's passion, his true passion, and I would say his calling, is really to saw through a variety of goalposts with his beloved hacksaw, but he has also considered a variety of other tools.
A grinder would work. I've also heard people say that, a cutting torch would be ideal.
Like almost like a blowtorch that burns through.
Yeah, like a welding torch.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what about this is going to seem ridiculous, but a chainsaw?
No, you wouldn't want to do that. Chainsaw is not sharp enough. You need a real fine-toothed blade.
And what about a battery-powered circular saw?
Again, the blades. Now, if you had a blade that was specifically for cutting metal, that would probably work well. But most of them are meant for lumber, and that's the teeth are too big.
How does one become Sawman? Like, what is Ned Vickers' superhero origin story?
It all started a long time ago. 40 years ago, back in 1984, when our man Ned was just a wee boy, 12 years old. He and his dad were both Tennessee Volunteers fans, and they went that year to the Tennessee-Alabama game.
It's time for the 67th meeting between the Alabama Crimson Tide and the Tennessee Volunteers.
So Ned and his father were sitting at Neyland Stadium among the fans.
95,422 are on hand as the Volunteers come racing onto the field, and it's football time in Tennessee.
And in the fourth quarter, unbelievably, Tennessee stages this epic comeback.
Tennessee with the ball, the full house backfield. Jones, give him 6. Touchdown, Big Orange. This is Robinson, the option. Robinson keep. Give him 2.
There is a field storming, and our little boy, Ned, as a 12-year-old, finds himself in the mix.
I turned to my dad and say, "I'm going, see you." And before he had a chance to say anything, I was gone. So we wind up making it down the strip. I've got my hand on a 4-foot section of the goalpost with 4 other, middle-aged guys, and we're looking for a hacksaw. At the time, they had service stations on the strip, and so we eventually found a service station that would loan us their hacksaw, and so we cut up a piece of it for each of us, and I head back to the car not knowing how mad my dad's going to be. This is almost 3 hours later. So I get to the car. It's the only car in the lot at that point. I have my piece of the goalpost, and I think he was just relieved, honestly, and pleased that I had this piece of the goalpost. That's really how it got started.
So yeah, very safe to say that there is nothing more important to Ned than these rare, valuable artifacts of upset glory. And so from that point forward, we're talking decades now, 40 years, he has again and again just been sawing through goalpost after goalpost, creating these artifacts for himself and others in good old Rocky Top, Tennessee.
Rocky Top, you'll always be home sweet home to me. Good old Rocky Top, Rocky Top.
And all of this brings us to the present or the near present. We're talking 2022. Once again, it's Alabama against Tennessee. Tennessee was the very sexy upset pick.
Give me Tennessee.
Pandemonium reign. This is going to be some kind of celebration if the Big Orange pulls it off.
And they win the game on an incredible knuckleball field goal.
From 40. On the way, a knuckleball. He got it.
Yet again, inspiring the Tennessee fans to storm the field at Neyland Stadium.
And here they come. on Rocky Top.
And Ned, again, is somewhere in that teeming mass of people.
So actually, Ned is not there. Ned was on a college visit that weekend. And so he was just getting back into town. He said he was 1.5 miles from campus at a friend's house, but he watches this whole thing unfold.
Our other son was at the game with a friend. And so we're watching the game like everyone else, and then, have the miraculous comeback and the field goal, and we're jumping up and down in the house. And my wife says, the boys need to see what this is like. So I grabbed a Tennessee bag, bright orange bag, so it'd blend in with everything. And I stuck a hacksaw into the bag, and off we go.
I am struck repeatedly by the intentionality of Sawman and his arsenal here, in deep contrast to Luke, once again, who just seemed to show up in this crowd, deeply disorganized with his classmates, and just generally try to throw this thing in the Cumberland River.
So the much experienced Sawman is very familiar with this dynamic and also with this milieu.
And so we're walking up the strip, and sure enough, about halfway up the strip, here come two uprights. So at that point, I join in the fray, and I'm walking along beside all the drunk college kids, trying to convince them to put the goalpost down and let's cut it up. And they were just dead set. Individually, they all thought it was a great idea. But, together, every time I'd get one of them convinced of it, somebody from behind him would yell, "To the river!" In the river. So we followed them all the way to the river. And sure enough, they tossed the first upright into the river. And then here comes the second one. They toss it in the river. Well, about that time, some fraternity boys decided that it would be awfully nice to have a piece of that goalpost. So several of them jumped in the river. It's about 10:30 at night, October, it's freezing outside, and there they are in the river. They fish it out and they bring it back, and they start marching it back toward Fraternity Row. And my wife stands in front of them and just, puts her hands up and says, "Halt, we have a saw." And so I'm a few hundred yards away with some other people at the time, and all of a sudden I start hearing them chant, "Sawman, sawman." And so here I come. So my plan is to cut a piece off of it, take it, and then donate the saw to the cause, because it's a lot of work to cut one of these up with a hacksaw. So I get started on it. They're chanting "Sawman." About halfway through it, I put too much pressure on the blade and broke it. And all of a sudden, I start getting booed by all the college students. They lift it up and off they go. And there had to have been 150 people out there. And all of a sudden, it's just the four of us standing there alone, and just bummed out because we've missed our chance at getting a piece of the goalpost.
What an emotional roller coaster.
Absolutely. But let's not forget, there was another goalpost in the water.
And so off we go. And we're running down the riverbank, and sure enough, there's one of the whole uprights is in the river, and there's some poor college student clinging to it. But it's too big for him to wrangle back to the dock. So my now 16-year-old, he was 14 at the time, turns to me and says, "Can I go in after it?" And, being the great parent I am, I says, "Yeah, sure, go." He strips down to his T-shirt and off he goes. And so the two of them get it up on the bank, and then we help them pull it up the rest of the way, but we don't have a saw. It's my four family members, a young life counselor from UT, and a 35-year-old drunk guy with one shoe. And so I start looking around. I tell the drunk guy, "Okay, you're coming with me. We're going to my house."
Good news for the drunk guy with one shoe. Sawman, as we know, owns more than one saw.
So he follows me. We go back to my house. We get a reciprocating saw this time. We come back down and got another hacksaw, work our way down to where they are. They had hidden the goalpost in the brush because there were people all around looking. And we pull it out, cut it into 5-6 foot sections, and we head back. So the young life counselor, his apartment was actually located right beside Peyton Manning's bar, Saloon 16. And that night, in celebration of the win, Morgan Wallen was doing an impromptu concert at this little 2,000 square foot bar
Got a special guest, Knoxville's own Morgan Wallen's going to come up here.
So you can imagine what that was like. It was a zoo. So we pull in next to this guy's apartment and was like, okay, 3, 2, 1, go. He runs around, we open the lift gate, he pulls his section off, and he just takes off running. And so he made it out of there alive.
In this moment, the legend of Sawman is really born. And I want to give credit to Mike Wilson at the Knoxville News Sentinel. He originally reported and published this story.
A local legend befitting local coverage.
So this legend starts to spread, and Ned himself, when he went back to work on Monday.
Every Monday morning, we have a manager's meeting where we get together at our production facility.
He happened to experience the legend being talked about out in the wild.
I walk into the meeting, and everyone's seated at the table, and I hear someone telling the story of this middle-aged guy called Sawman. And so I walk in, and I'm a very conservative person. They would never expect that I would be the person. So I sit down and I said, yeah, I'm Sawman. And their chins just hit the table.
So very proudly, Ned and his family even made the photo of them sawing the goalpost that year their family Christmas card. So
I have not seen this yet. Happy holidays, the Vickers family. And it is a Sawman doing what he loves.
They're all elated.
It's the most wonderful time of the year. Holidays on the house at DraftKings Casino. With this season's offerings, you'll unwrap everything on your list. Exclusive games, huge jackpots, and exciting rewards. We're offering a warm welcome to new players with $100 instantly in casino credits with just a $10 wager. Plus, everyone can get in on the action with a holiday reward every week. So, sign up with code DLS because the holiday cheer is here. Only on DraftKings Casino. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In Connecticut, help is available for problems gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. 21 plus. Physically present in Connecticut, Michigan, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, West Virginia only. Void in Ontario. Eligibility restrictions apply. New customers only. Opt-in required. Casino credits are non-withdrawable and expire in 168 hours. Terms at casino.draftkings.com/promos.
So we clearly have now, Mickey, thanks to your reporting, the first family of goalpost destruction that I have to personally, for legal reasons again, disclaim, because as much as this practice is a family heirloom, much like the goalposts themselves, this DIY dynasty is, in fact, legally a thing that we cannot co-sign officially.
So, funny enough, Sawman's son, Eli.
Sawboy,
happens to be a freshman at Vanderbilt this year and was actually at the Vanderbilt-Alabama game.
Of course he was.
That we talked about earlier in the episode with Topless Luke.
And where was Sawman?
So Sawman was not there. Sawman is watching the game on TV. And he's texting with his son Eli, who's sitting in the crowd in the student section. And as we described before, this unbelievable upset is brewing. And so Sawman texts Eli and says, hey, I'm getting in the car right now. I've got my saw. He also adds, as the great father that he is, that also in the event that you need bail money tonight, Mom and I were good for it.
Great parenting. The decision-making, though, does raise this question about the economy around all this, right? Like the goalpost economy, which is clearly something that is of concern to both police helicopters with night vision and also college administrators everywhere. The reason that they are concerned from a financial perspective, how much does the thing that Sawman loves to saw actually cost?
This is where we have to talk about the existence of Big Goalpost. There is a company called Sportsfield Specialties that is the #1 manufacturer and installer of goalposts throughout college football and also in the pros. I spoke with a guy named Kevin Devontier, who is the director of sales at Sportsfield, And he is also very charmingly the head of what is called the replacement goalpost market, which is a market that exists because of this phenomenon of goalposts getting torn down. What Kevin told me about all of this is that the goalpost costs about $8,000 to $10,000 each to manufacture and to ship to location.
So for the buyers, not great, but for the sellers, the goalpost industrial complex, that's pretty good business.
Not only do they sell these replacement goalposts, but they have now come to recommend that schools actually purchase a second goalpost just to have in storage in the event that their goalposts get torn down. And the goalpost guys, Big Goalpost, all their executives are on a group chat together, and they watch the college football scoreboards almost like tornado chasers watch the Doppler radar. And they're looking for upsets. And in the event of Vanderbilt and Alabama, apparently that evening, the executives were gleefully texting to one another about the goalposts. They're coming down, they're coming down, they're coming down. It's go time. And suddenly they have to mobilize to make the new goalposts and rush to get them installed in time for the next home game.
So it sounds like the defense of Sawman is that Sawman is actually, in this economy, just a job creator.
Definitely. He has been. But there is something happening in the world of goalpost technology that is threatening to turn all of this upside down.
As it were.
There is a new hydraulic model of a goalpost, a futuristic model that can cost up to $25,000. So we're talking more than twice the cost of a conventional
I'm getting
goalpost.
a pimp my ride just sort of aspect to this.
Definitely. But what a hydraulic goalpost is it looks just like a conventional goalpost. But instead of it being one solid structure, at the top of the gooseneck is a hinge. And the hydraulic hinge allows for the uprights to tilt forward and lay straight down, like almost face first, on the turf with a push of a button. I want you to take a look at this clip and see what happens right after the clock hits zero.
Right, Georgia Tech.
So the goalposts come down immediately, Pablo.
Pointing at this.
I mean, everyone's shocked. No one's seen this before.
Right.
It's like watching, the Death Star being operational. So what happened technically is that
was so fast.
Somewhere in the stadium, an administrator pushed the secret hydraulic button, and the goalpost immediately slammed down to the ground, and they swarmed it with security guards trying to keep the students away from it so that they couldn't rip it to pieces.
Right. And so this new security system, it seems like, worked exactly as advertised.
Well, there was a photo that went around after the game. And if you take a look at this photo, you can see that the hydraulic system and the gooseneck, it did function as intended.
Those 30-foot uprights that Mickey was describing before have been amputated.
So, despite the fact that the hydraulic component worked as intended.
Clearly, that part, the gooseneck is immaculate.
The students, and really credit to the Georgia Tech students, they still somehow were able to snap the uprights off of the construction and still parade them gloriously around the stadium.
And that, by the way, is exactly what happened this past Saturday when Arizona State stormed the field early after upsetting BYU, it turned out, and Oklahoma did the same against Alabama. And at both places, you could very clearly see the hydraulic goalposts that Mickey was just describing rotating down to the ground and then immediately become defended by all of that security, where they remained intact. And when it comes to the conferences themselves, because you see all these headlines about all of the money that they're finding schools, right, who are involved in these things, I do want to point out that we here at Pablo Torre Finds Out did, of course, reach out to a top SEC official for comment about this regime of fines. And what they said is that these are field storming fines. The price has, in fact, gone up in the 20 years since the SEC adopted the policy. We now are at $100,000 for the first offense, $250,000 for the second, $500,000 for subsequent offenses after that. And there's also, just in case you were wondering, an additional $100,000 penalty, Mickey, if fans storm the field before the end of the game.
So all that being the case, you should know that those are blanket fees. In the event of a goalpost getting taken down, there are no punishments. At the moment, there's a loophole.
Look, you have your sweatshirt. I see what you're trying to imply here.
Yeah, I mean, just as a public service announcement, I will just say, for anyone interested.
Why are you speaking directly into a camera?
And I'll say this to
I
the
don't
camera.
like you grabbing the camera.
If anyone has dreamed of doing this, if anyone wants to take our point-by-point guide and put this into action, now is the time. Change is coming. Things might not ever be as easy to do this as it is right now.
I think we should probably go to break.
Don't delay.
If you're getting some holiday shopping done this weekend, I urge you to pick up some touchdowns because they are all on sale all week at DraftKings Sportsbook. DraftKings has doorbuster profit boosts and you bet one, get one promotions on all types of touchdown bets. DraftKings has odds on pretty much anything you can imagine, actually. And personally, what I'm eyeing is the will there be a first-time NFL champion bet. And I like this because the Bills and the Lions are both really fun to watch and also really good. And you can also get the Texans, the Vikings, and the Falcons inside of that, even though, the Falcons, whatever. But the odds, you should know, are always subject to change. But right now, you can get all those teams for plus 105. So grab some touchdowns with DraftKings Sportsbook. They're on sale from Thanksgiving through Cyber Monday. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code Pablo to opt in. That is code Pablo, only on DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. One bonus bet per customer based on amount of initial touchdown bet and expires 168 hours after issuance. One single-use boost per customer that only applies to winnings. See sportsbook.draftkings.com/promos for additional terms and responsible gaming resources.
So it's time to bring us all full circle here because the last time we talked about Luke, our Vanderbilt friend, he was topless en route to the Cumberland River, tracked by police helicopters using night vision.
It was just a show, for lack of a better word.
And now, we also know, because of your reporting with the Saw family, that Saw Boy, son of Saw Man, was also there in the milieu, as you put it, somewhere, marching down Broadway towards that very same river in question. And so the thing that they all hurled into the Cumberland River together, that all-important metal object, when they get dredged from the water, which I presume they did, where did they go?
So this is another great innovation that has happened, this time on the university and on the rebel side, which is that these goalposts oftentimes make their way back to the schools from which they were taken. And schools have realized that these objects are incredibly valuable, especially if you cut them into tiny little pieces and auction them off on the university website. So in the case of Vanderbilt University, they auctioned off tiny pieces of this incredible goalpost for prices like up to $7,500 per slice.
Wait, it sounds like the university, the big bad administrators from the top down, they were doing, in the end, what f***ing Sawman was doing.
Well, this is a capitalist society, Pablo, and, they would argue that hey, they're just doing this to pay the fines that the conferences are levying on them, and also to cover the cost of the replacement goalposts. But just, a cursory look at these auctions, you're realizing that the universities, if you do the math, they're actually making more money than any of this cost.
Like I'm doing some basic multiplication. And this sounds like a like a relative windfall for one Vanderbilt university.
It has been, but I say credit to the universities for doing this because there is a great appetite for all of these objects.
Yes,
and
of course.
As a surprise to you, we can bring in a little something.
I like how you're grabbing cameras. You're summoning Patrick from.
Here we go, Pablo.
Thank you to Rob for unveil. Jesus Christ.
And in front of us today, feel its power, Pablo.
Oh my God. Hold on. This is on a plate. I mean,
lay your hands on that.
Is this the goalpost?
From Vanderbilt University that was
October 5th?
Thrown in the Cumberland River, torn down by topless Luke.
It's so dirty.
There it was. Piece of
oh my God,
4-inch aluminum pipe lent to us by Vanderbilt boosters, who retained some of the slices. Perhaps they will auction them off at a later time, but just to give you a sense of, again, the totemic power of this object.
This would look so good on my wall of tchotchkes that my wife is mad at me for.
Unfortunately, Pablo, you cannot have that. But before we go...
That's a real bummer, honestly.
I do have another surprise for you. And, to honor, again, this underground folk tradition, I have a gift for you that you can keep. And it's a gift on behalf of myself and also on behalf of Big Goalpost.
Nerve-wracking to see you continually unveil things I don't know about.
You can bring this one in. We can leave this one for the moment.
What is... Okay, so... so a fancy box with a velveteen cushion. Oh, my God.
So what you have there, Pablo, is...
Oh, my God.
Another slice of a goalpost. This is the very top of an upright.
Oh, my
And
God.
I will say that, for a variety of reasons, some legal, I can't fully disclose.
Yeah, where is this? Where'd you get this?
Where this game-used
Mickey?
upright came from. But let's just say that I myself got something out of this as well in the form of my new Christmas card design.
So for those not watching on YouTube and the DraftKings Network, you've made a terrible decision today. Mickey is taking a hacksaw to what I now must presume is the upright from a local field near his home in New York. And it says Happy Holidays above, and he is grinning like a Saw relative if I've ever seen one. I think I have some questions that have been answered.
Good.
When I tell my wife why I'm bringing this home today and what it is, she is not going to find any of this even vaguely funny.
Another tchotchke for your shelves, Pablo. And let me be the first to tell you, happy holidays.
This has been Pablo Torre Finds Out, a Meadowlark Media production. And I'll talk to you next time.